What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this Monday edition of For the Love of Wrestling. I am, of course, your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Monday. We have got a lot of stuff to talk about today as we have 3 shows to go through. WWE Smackdown, AEW Rampage, AEW Collision. See what we got here. Jeff is in the house. What is going on, boss man? Renegade reviewing the weekend in TV, and Easy E seeing a Russo booked WCW pay-per-view for the first time. Fun as F way to start my Monday on 2 of my favorite channels. Well, there you go. I'm definitely curious to see what Bischoff has to say, and especially the little teaser that you threw out there. So I may have to go give that video a watch. Hopefully you'll give the one that I sent you a watch some point between now and Meech's Musings this afternoon. Maybe you can even talk about it on Meech's Musings, give you a little something to get into, a little bit of steak with your potatoes and the shills that are ahead. But like I said, man, we've got a lot of stuff to discuss today. We're going to get right into it. We're going to start with SmackDown today just because I actually was able to watch SmackDown live this week due to the fact that it was on FS1. I think that's a great perk to SmackDown being on FS1 as opposed to the regular Fox channels out here. When it's out here on the normal Fox channels, I don't get it till 8 p.m. Pacific. That's 11 o'clock for you East Coasters. But with it being on FS1 this week, I was actually able to see it at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. So, whereas last week I did Rampage, then SmackDown. This week I'm going to do SmackDown, then Rampage because of the ability to have saw it live. So, let's get into this. Move my notes up here just a smidge. SmackDown began with the Tribal Chief and Paul Heyman coming out to the ring. As Roman went to raise his title up in the air for his pyro, LA Knight's music hit. Power walks down the stage, passing Roman, not looking at him, not acknowledging him, nothing. Gets right into the ring and takes a seat at the head of the table for the contract signing. I thought this was some brilliant head games by LA Knight. Yeah, trying to get into the head of the Tribal Chief. You figure since SummerSlam, the bloodline has pretty much begun to crumble. The Roman Empire, as it will, is being toppled. So you've got LA Knight coming out there now, totally disrespecting the Tribal Chief. Not looking his way, sitting at the head of the table, just chef's kiss on the way this segment was booked. I know the boss man over at No DQ hates contract signings, but the way this was set up, I think was just sheer brilliance. In the ring, Nick Aldis welcomes us to SmackDown and he reminds us while we're here. LA Knight interrupts him and says the contract states that Reigns is going to just hand the championship to him. He signs his name real quickly, gives Roman the contract, and Roman asks if LA Knight has even done a contract signing before. Hell, if he's had a championship match before. And as the Tribal Chief signs his contract, the crowd begins to chant Roman's scared. And I liked this response from the crowd because it just shows how much the people are in to LA Knight. Yeah. He has truly become the new people's champion. LA Knight says he only needs one shot. And how it's only taken him 1 year to get to this moment. You think about a year ago, he was still Max Dupree leading the Maximum Male Models. And that horrid BS gimmick. While Roman has been failing and floundering and doing the suffering succotash, and it took him all these years to get to this moment, LA Knight's gotten here in 1 year. Roman gets frustrated, flips the table, hits LA Knight with it, and once LA Knight gets the upper advantage and begins to turn the tables, here comes Jimmy Uso, who gets put through the table for his, his own well-being there, comes out there, tries to interfere, and because of his involvement, he takes a table. We then go to our first match, and it's Santos Escobar and Carlito for the LWO versus the Street Profits. Now, we got some new music for the Street Profits, and I understand the desire to give them more heelish music. They need heelish music. Just something about their new music wasn't connecting to me, though. Maybe it's one of those things that I got to listen to a little bit more and it'll grow on me, but I just love their old theme so much that it's going to take some time to get into this one. And it's not like Carlito's new theme where it's just horrid. I feel like over time their theme will grow on me. It just doesn't have the same bounce and catchiness to it as the other theme does. This was a great match between all four men. Carlito looked good. The momentum was going back and forth as it needed to, so no team really was looking like it was the dominant force. We see Rey Mysterio watching backstage on the monitor where he gets assaulted by Logan Paul. Carlito leaves the match to kind of go and tend to Rey Mysterio and make the save. This allowed the Street Profits to hit their new finisher, the Revelation, onto Santos Escobar and get the victory. It was a fun match. It was a good match. Just not a fan of the new music. See what we got going in here. We got Jeff saying that he was so happy to get SmackDown live at 5, but we did go to bed. But did we go to bed early because of it? Oh, no. King Mike saying LA Knight will fall in line like the rest of them. I don't think my chest could have puffed out any further with pride over LA Knight's Friday night, especially the beginning, of course. King Mike, to your point about falling in line like everybody else. It's a touchy situation because at this point, how do you bid against the tribal chief? Right? Like the tribal chief has just been so on fire. How do you bid against him? But at the same time, they've painted themselves into a corner with the tribal chief where it's going to take something monumental to topple him. LA Knight is cooking on all cylinders right now. From a business standpoint, why wouldn't you pull the trigger? Dare I say, LA Knight is rolling into Crown Jewel with even more momentum than Cody Rhodes rolled into WrestleMania. And everybody thought Cody was going to do it there. Just something to think about, bro. I don't 100% disagree, but I definitely think there's a huge Riddler-sized question mark right there. We then see Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman in the Bloodline locker room. Heyman shows the tribal chief a new NFL, one of those replica belts that they created for the Green Bay Packers, and says that he's going to give it to LA Knight because it's the closest that LA Knight is ever going to get to a championship. Jimmy comes in from the trainer's room after being put through the table, just kind of falls and collapses on the couch. Roman kind of gives him the stink eye a little bit, like, the hell are you doing, bro? Roman wants Jay to handle the LA Knight situation, so Paul goes to get the match made for the evening. So it will be LA Knight, yeah, versus Jimmy Uso. Yeah, I agree, Jeff. There is no talent on the roster right now with more momentum than LA Knight, and they absolutely should pull the trigger. We then see Logan Paul walking backstage, and he gets briefly interviewed, steals the microphone, gives it back, and then just moves on. And he stops when he sees KO wearing a Rey Mysterio shirt. Kind of insults him for wearing the shirt since he's going to be challenging Mysterio at Crown Jewel for the United States Championship. And then he begins to walk on. We then see A-Town Down Under approach Kevin Owens. And KO tells them that he can punch both of them in the face in one shot. And of course, they don't believe it. Little jaw jacking. KO goes to walk away. There's a little bit of commotion backstage. Some agents get involved. And then once you think the shot is cleared and he's gone away, KO comes running back and boom, clocks both of them across the jaw in one shot. And is like, told you I could do it. We then get Kayla Braxton interviewing Dragon Lee, who is interrupted by Cedric Alexander, who challenges Dragon Lee to a match, which Dragon Lee accepts. See, we got another comment here from Jeff. What do we got? Only a K with excess Logan Paul because Kathy Kelly was on screen with him. We talk about it all the time, bro, and I'm curious to see what the prediction panels say, but I think we're going to have a new United States Championship at Crown Jewel. I'm calling it now. Logan Paul is going to defeat Mysterio. We then see a promo from earlier in the day when Shotzi was thanking Nick Aldis for allowing her and Scarlett to host night one of Halloween Havoc on Tuesday. If you missed my review of that or the show, I highly recommend you go back on Hulu, watch the commercial-free presentation of Halloween Havoc, watch my review of it, especially with tomorrow night being night 2 of the program. Last week's Halloween Havoc was arguably the best wrestling presentation on TV last week, in my humble opinion. And that's not just because it's my NXT. I firmly believe that it was the premier show across all broadcasts last week. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven come in, and they begin to insult Shotzi's costumes, specifically her pinhead costume, which again, go on Shotzi's social medias, specifically her Twix account or her Instagram account. Look at the pictures of her as Pinhead from Hellraiser. Phenomenal job done. So Shotzi makes a challenge to Chelsea. Nick Aldis makes the match official. Next segment, we've got Shotzi versus Chelsea Green. It was a fun match by the two ladies. Nothing huge and spectacular. Shotzi was fired up, took advantage of Chelsea's showboating in order to get the victory. What we got here? Kathy Kelly on SmackDown and Jackie on Raw. Why do we need Kayla Braxton here or anywhere but hosting kickoff panels, not hating? You know what? I prefer Kayla. I prefer Kayla to either of the other two, if I'm being perfectly honest. I feel like she's the senior interviewer, if you will. She's like the Mean Gene, and the others are like Doc Hendricks and, Michael Cole back in the day and Kevin Kelly. But she's the Mean Gene in my opinion. Halloween Havoc is going to kick all the ass tomorrow and will be a huge part of what is going to be a batshit busy October 31st. Of course, stay tuned. I will be running that trailer during this broadcast. 100% on board with showcasing both Shotzi and Chelsea more often. Highly underutilized talent until now. Completely agree with Shotzi. Chelsea, I feel they've been utilizing quite a bit. I am curious to see what's going to happen on Halloween Havoc tomorrow. And again, we'll get to that a little bit later. Then we got a John Cena promo in the ring. And this was some powerful shit, if I'm being honest. Cena came out there and he just starts pouring his heart out as only John does. Because in the context of the storyline, he's doubting himself. He's got to go up against the enforcer of the bloodline, Solo Sikoa. And he's gone for 2,000 whatever it was days as of last week in his promo without a victory in a singles match. And the crowd's trying to hype him up, chanting, you've still got it. You've still got it. And looks dead in the camera and is like, but what if I don't? And I was just like, whoa. Superman is admitting that he may not have it anymore. That was deep for me, especially considering all the hatred I have spewed on Cena over the years. For him to look dead into the hard cam, emotional as hell, to where you would almost think he was on the verge of tears and be like, but what if I don't? Just knocked me for a loop. Heyman came out, asked if he could get in the ring, threw a few backhanded compliments at John Cena. When John was originally called up and Heyman was in charge of SmackDown, who was Heyman's number one draft pick for a call up? John Cena. Starts going through some of the back history of Heyman and Cena. But of course, it was all just a setup to get Cena to lower his guard as Solo Sikoa came in, gave the Samoan spike to him. Just an amazing segment. If you don't go back and watch SmackDown for anything else, watch it for the contract signing, watch it for this. Matches aside, these were great moments on the show. Exactly, Jeff. Exactly. Cena and Heyman both doing their things. MFers got us worked up. Dragon Lee versus Cedric Alexander happened next, and it was a good match. Lots of fast-paced action. Both men looked great. However, Dragon Lee got the predictable victory because we know they've been seriously getting behind, pushing Dragon Lee. I feel like they're trying to set Dragon Lee up to be the next Rey Mysterio once Rey Mysterio finally steps away. We figure he went in the Hall of Fame this year. The fact that he's still wrestling on a full-time basis is just kind of besides me. I don't think it should be happening. He should have stepped away by now. But if Adam Copeland, if Christian Cage, if Chris Jericho, if Steen, and all these guys can still be wrestling on a consistent basis, especially when both Adam Copeland and Steen are in the Hall of Fame as well, why can't Mysterio, I guess? It was nice to not see Cedric get just straight up jobbed out here, even though we knew that he was going to lose. Yeah, exactly. Dragon Lee's going to be the next Mysterio as long as the most recent Rey Mysterio stops being Rey Mysterio. We then had Bianca Belair come out for a promo. She talks about the attack on her by Damage Control that took her out of action for 2 months. Talks about her rage and the vengeance that she felt, and says that Nick Aldis has booked the match for Crown Jewel, Bianca Belair versus Io Sky for the title, and next week, being this coming week, the go home show in the crown jewel, she's going to get a shot at Bayley. I enjoyed seeing this fire back in Bianca without her resorting to the, for lack of a better term, ghetto girl attitude. It was nice to see some fire of her without being resorted to a stereotype. I don't know if Bianca takes it a crown jewel though. I'm not sure. You know, I feel like Io has had a decent run. I don't think Io was ever going to be a long-term champion, but at the same time, I think we still want to see Io versus Bayley. That's the only reason why I'm hesitant to Io losing the belt just yet. But we're going to have to see what happens this week on SmackDown. I know it was taped. I know there's spoilers out there. Please don't post spoilers in the chat. I've avoided spoilers all week. I'd like to be surprised with what happens on SmackDown. Please and thank you. I know that we both think a lot of Bianca, and the Reignited Fire is good to see, but they definitely have to work on to get me reinvested. That's fair. That's fair. It was then time for our main event as L.A. Knight, took on Jimmy Uso. This was a great main event, banner of a match. Jimmy made L.A. Knight look tremendous. Jimmy hit the Uso splash, but L.A. Knight was able to kick out. When Uso went for a second splash, L.A. Knight countered with his jumping top rope superplex, hit the BFT, the blunt force trauma, for the victory. Post-match, Roman Reigns comes out for the attack, but L.A. Knight hits him with the BFT and then walks out. L.A. Knight looking strong and on top of the program, heading into the go-home show, which will be this week on SmackDown. Overall, I thought SmackDown was a good show. And before we get to Rampage, I'm going to take a quick intermission here, a quick commercial break. And we're going to show you all of the watch-alongs that are in store for us across the Jeff Meacham Network Multiverse of Media, beginning with Tuesday's Halloween Havoc and going into next year. We will be right back.
I am Dracula. I bid you welcome. Listen then, children of the night, what music they sing.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
The way you walked was thorny, through no fault of your own. But as the rain enters the soil, the river enters the sea. So tears ran to a predestined end.
We are back, and again, you can tune in to all the channels across the multiverse of media, or most of the channels anyway. The Greg Cherry brand, Jay Hebert Studios, Simple Man's brand, Casa D18 Studios, and the Jeff Meacham Network, of course. All those watch-alongs coming up as either myself and the Simple Man Noah Foster or Dattila and the Simple Man Noah Foster provide commentary, live reactions, and so much more for all that stuff. And yes, did anyone else notice how fast the transitions have become on this? I think I had it set for 1.9 seconds per image in order to make it fit with the track, Jeff. 1.9 seconds, so not even a full 2 seconds. Going into Rampage now. What we got here? Daniel Price saying Mysterio needs to step away, maybe so, but someone that definitely needs to step away is Danielson. Injured 4 times in 2 years in AEW. Dude's going to die or get paralyzed if he doesn't stop. He did announce that he was going to retire within a year, if I'm not mistaken. I could swear I saw that on the broadcast, and there's at least always 2 men in the ring, if not 3 or 4. So it's not just on Danielson there. Maybe Tony wants to talk to his other guys about being a little bit safer and not, trying to go out there and kill themselves every time. But what do I know? I don't run a wrestling company. I just talk about it. We kicked off Rampage with Santana versus Ortiz. This was a grudge match, an emotional match, a dramatic match. They kept talking about how personal it was. It was such a grudge match, so emotional, so dramatic, that they gave it away on free TV instead of saving it for Full Gear. Why should I care, since they didn't care enough to put this personal contest on a pay-per-view? Santana won. Next, we then got a Kenny Omega versus MJF video. And after the video package goes and we cut to each person to kind of give their final thoughts, Jay White interrupted Kenny Omega, and Callis was seen talking to MJF. Very interesting developments there. We then had Renee Paquette interviewing Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, and Sky Blue. Stat says that she considers them her friends and kind of asks Sky Blue, what's up with her? Sky says that she's fine, and Willow disagrees. They both are talking about how ever since she got misted, she's been a really different person. Sky Blue says that Willow needs to worry about the match tonight because that's what she's focused on. Darren, what's going on? Good to see you. Jeff, yeah, exactly. Completely forgot these two are beefing. Not even mentioned on Dynamite other than the rapid plug. But we're supposed to care. Kip Sabian then runs down Philadelphia in the ring. Mark Briscoe comes out, brawls with Kip Sabian. Kind of a throwaway segment here. Backstage, Renee Paquette interviews 2.0. Mainly talking to Anna Jay about the upcoming 4-way match. And Don Callis interrupts, kind of wanting to say that, maybe he could use a tag team in his family. Looking towards Cool Hand Angelo Parker and Daddy Magic Matt Menard. And he goes to leave. Daniel Garcia can't believe that they're even hemming and hawing about that. 2.0 begins to leave. Cool Hand Ange is still there as Ruby Soho walks up and returns an item to him that he left in catering. The two kind of share a little bit of romantic tension. Very, very interestingly booked segment after the heels of their previous segment. Curious to see what's going to happen here with Cool Hand Angelo Parker and Ruby Soho. We then get our fatal 4-way women's match. Anna Jay versus Abaddon versus Sky Blue versus Willow Nightingale. I don't know. Maybe I'm comparing it too much to what I saw in Halloween Havoc. I thought this was a horribly booked match. I thought some of the spots looked sloppy. Abaddon wins, which I guess is okay because her gimmick kind of loans herself to Halloween. And she's getting the title shot, the following night on Collision, which is the final show before Halloween. But considering Abaddon has been off TV for God knows how long, didn't even know that she was all elite, because I'm still kind of new to watching AEW. I've only been watching it for the better part of a year and a half. I don't know who Abaddon is. Don't know when the last time she wrestled here was. She's not someone I see on TV all the time, like I do the Outcasts, like I do Britt Baker, who's kind of taken a step back, Jamie Hayter before she got injured, Jade Cargill before she jumped, Anna Jay, Ty Mello before she got pregnant, Sky Blue, Willow Nightingale. All these women are women that I see on my TV more than I see Abaddon. Hell, I think I saw Thunder Rosa wrestle on TV more recently than I did Abaddon. And think about how long it's been since Thunder Rosa has been on TV. Just very lackluster in the presentation of their women on this match, if I'm being 100% honest. Main event was Konosuke Takeshita versus Kyle Fletcher. I felt like this was a tremendous main event, definitely made up for the lackluster women's match that preceded it. Great back and forth action. And although we knew Takeshita was going to win, Fletcher was made to look like $1 million. He was made to look like a viable contender. He was made to look like somebody who could be a singles champion in AEW, not just a tag team champion within Aussie Open. Post-match, Fletcher attacks Takeshita and takes a chair to Hobbs, but Don Callis stops Powerhouse Hobbs from getting him, kind of calls him off as this is what Don Callis wanted to see out of Kyle Fletcher. He wanted to see this aggression, this fire. Did Kyle Fletcher just join the Don Callis family? They didn't really make an announcement about it. They didn't do anything to really celebrate the fact, but the way that it ended kind of would lead one to believe that he very well could be the newest member of the Callis family. I guess we'll have to wait to Dynamite when they come out and show the Last Supper image and see if Kyle Fletcher's face has been added to the painting. See what we got here. Daniel says it was a sloppy matches. Having Abaddon win was a gratuitous, so it's almost Halloween booking. Pretty clear there was no chance she was beating Sheeta with as hard as they're pushing Storm. Agreed. Agree with you on that one. Her lack of appearances on TV is definitely not reflective of how Abaddon is. Didn't say it was. Another one of those highly underutilized talents. No one's going to push hard until after Tony. Exactly. That was the thing with this match, It just, I don't know. So that is Rampage. Very quickly, there were only 3 matches. There were more segments than matches, which, I will give AEW credit. Ever since they had their asses thoroughly beaten and handed to them by the Tuesday Night War, I have definitely noticed a shift where they have tried to create storylines and do more backstage stuff to kind of further angles. But they still have a long way to go to catch WWE's presentation. 3 matches in an hour is still pretty solid, I think. But I do feel that some of the stuff could have been trimmed down in the backstage area. We're going to take another really brief commercial break before we come back and discuss Collision. We're going to show you guys all the special events that are going to be coming up on open mic nights here in the next few weeks and months across the Jeff Meacham Network Multiverse of Media. We'll be right back in about 40 seconds. Stay tuned.
Hi, Georgie. Don't you want a balloon?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Don't you blame the movies! Movies don't create psychos! Movies make psychos more creative!
Stay slow, Georgie. Stay slow.
And when you're down here with me.
You float door!
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
All those great special events coming to open mic nights here soon. Next one being Disney Karaoke, Saturday, November 18th, immediately following Full Gear as part of our open mic night presentation, much to the Simple Man Noah Foster's chagrin. And then we'll have our second annual Christmas karaoke in December, and then we'll have a couple of months of game shows come January and February. Last show we're going to discuss today is Collision. And man, when it first debuted, Collision was my favorite show of the week to watch. I loved how differently it was presented to everybody. I liked the fact that there was talent featured on there that you weren't really getting on Dynamite and Rampage. And ever since the termination of Phillip Brooks, Collision has just really started to lose everything I felt was special about it. And I'm not saying that it's a result of Punk's release, but there's definitely been a notable change in creative direction since Punk's release. So Collision began with Switchblade Jay White versus A.R. Fox. This was a decent match between Switchblade and AR, even though right on the surface, just looking at the two men in the ring, you know who's going to win this match. Jay White did make Fox look good. Not as good as Takeshita made Fletcher look on Rampage, but Jay White made AR Fox look good. But who is AR Fox? Why are they fighting? Why should I care that they're fighting? This is a throwaway match with no real repercussions, no nothing. With Switchblade Jay White going to face MJF here in a few weeks, you would think that they would be trying to tap into that. What is AR Fox's connection with MJF? The upcoming Full Gear is in LA. So either tap into some LA talent that's on the roster, like Scorpio Sky, or you've got the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass, who have been trying to get to be MJF's partner for the upcoming 4-on-4 match. You've got the Kingdom, who run with Roddy Strong, who's best friends with Adam Cole, who they took out of Action. You know, there's other matches that you could put together with the same result of Jay White winning that would at least be cohesive to the story you're telling. Make it make sense. If you're going to throw together a random match that's designed to essentially be a squash and make Jay White look strong going into the title match, at least tie it to the angle. It just, my biggest issue with AEW is the booking of matches. MJF came out after the match to try and get his belt back, but he is denied access to it. We then get a backstage interview with the Acclaimed, and they talk about how this coming Saturday on Collision is going to be National 69 Day, as it'll be their 69th day reigning as the trio's champions. Platinum Max talks about how MJF is going to be there ringside, and Anthony Bowens tells him that he's being catfished. Platinum Max mentions how he sent him some pictures of himself. Bowens and Daddy Ass kind of put Platinum Max on timeout in the corner, have him go face the wall. Funny segment, but dumb segment. The Acclaimed are so much better than this. They should be doing so much more. They're kind of killing any credibility that the Acclaimed had, because why am I now supposed to believe the shots that Platinum Max is going to take when he comes to the ring in his rhymes if he's being this stupid in backstage promos? For real. We then get the Boys with Dalton Castle versus the Guns. Squash match. Guns win. Next. We then got a hype video for Omega versus MJF. Then went backstage to Lexi Nair and Ryan Nemeth. And Nemeth mentioned some upcoming movies and commercials that he's going to be in. The Hollywood Hunk says that he's here for some management. Knocks on CJ Perry's door. The tag on the door literally says hot and flexible. Don't get me started. Miro answers, drags him in, and begins to just beat the crap out of him. Let's see what we got here. Jeff says all three of these guys are so much more talented and credible than that backstage. Exactly. Daniel Price says Castle would be better off going to NXT. AEW's used him like crap. I mean, from what I know about Dalton Castle, he's more of an ROH talent than an AEW main roster talent. But in the fact that he's more of an ROH talent, the AEW main roster fans don't know who he is. So when he comes up, they need to make a point to tell us who he is. Like, seriously. They need to make us care about the characters. You can't even pronounce characters without care. We then had the AEW Women's Championship match, Abaddon versus Hikaru Shida. And I will say that for as random as Abaddon being in the four-way winning the title opportunity was, this was a fun match between the two women. Abaddon brought out a bag that everybody assumed was going to be thumbtacks, and it ended up being candy. Shida put a jack-o'-lantern on Abaddon's head and then hit the katana kick for the victory. I think Shida looked gorgeous in her Halloween costume. Not a big fan of Resident Evil, but apparently she was one of the characters for Resident Evil. It was a throwaway match. You knew Abaddon wasn't going to win the title because Toni Storm is going for the big moment in Hollywood. But it was fun nonetheless. Jeff says, every segment of Collision, which I didn't see for the record that you're describing me, makes me want to find a way to delete it off the TV. As far as what I've talked about so far, Jeff, Abaddon and Shida, I think you would enjoy. I really do think you would enjoy it. I feel like it was a fun match. And again, Shida looked gorgeous in her cosplay. We then had a Dax Harwood, Ricky Starks backstage, kind of like battle promo. They kept cutting from one to the other. It was interesting. It was fun. It was what it was. We then had a Keith Lee, Shane Taylor promo. Same vein. They would talk to one, they talk to the other, kind of bounce back and forth in the editing. We then got Samoa Joe versus Rhett Titus for the Ring of Honor Television Championship. Again, squash match. Joe won. The sad thing about all this is that Rhett Titus actually isn't that far removed from the TV title, as Rhett Titus was Ring of Honor TV champion, lost the belt to Minoru Suzuki. Excuse me. Let me try that again. That was a lot to say. Titus was the champion, lost the belt to Minoru Suzuki. Suzuki lost the belt to Joe. Like, that's how recently Rhett Titus has been a serious competitor for the Ring of Honor title. And it's just sad to see him squashed that quickly. We then went and saw Renee Paquette with QTV. QT Marshall back for the first time in a long time with his championship that he won from AAA, I believe. Talks about how he's going to try to bring some more talent over to AEW. We'll see what happens there. Johnny TV was being Johnny TV. Love watching him, whatever you want to call him. Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, Johnny Impact. We then got a Claudio promo, and Claudio's promo was pretty intense. This is where we find out the extent of Danielson's injury, which Daniel referenced earlier. Apparently, it's a broken orbital bone that Orange Cassidy's Orange Punch delivered on Wednesday. Jacked up Danielson. If you remember when I did my Dynamite review, I did mention that Danielson looked injured, that people were at ringside kind of checking on him. We find out here that it was a broken orbital bone as a result of the Orange Punch. The bigger question I have here is this. Is this going to affect Danielson's timeline? Because Danielson basically gave a year, one more year, because of his retirement. He wanted to be retired by the time his daughter turned 6, whatever it is. And now with this injury and being out of action for the rest of the year, according to this, are they going to get a few more months on him come next year? How much longer is that going to be? We then go to the main event. Or no, excuse me, not the main event. Felt like it could have been the main event, though. We got Ricky Starks versus Dax Harwood. This was a fantastic match. Both men looked great in the ring. Dax did a great job helping to get Starks over. Not like Starks needs to get over, because Starks is already over like Rover in the ring. But great job getting Starks over to that next level. Before the match even began, the lights went out. When they came back on, we saw the House of Black in the arena. They stood in the stairwells watching the entire match. Once the match was over, lights went out again, and this time Julia Hart, back from her wedding and her honeymoon, stood on top of the entrance ramp. When the lights went out again, the House of Black was in the ring, and everyone looked like they were surrounding Big Bill and Ricky Starks. But then the House of Black turned, and it was 5-on-2 versus FTR. Then everyone starts attacking FTR, but La Faction Ingobernable hit the ring, and they seemed to corner FTR, making it look like it was going to be a 9-on-2, but LFI attacked the House of Black, and a Pier 6 brawl breaks out. Let's see here. Jeff said, who is Ring of Honor champion anyway? Forgot without doing a Google search. Fuck me, it's Eddie Kingston. That's why I forgot. Exactly. Daniel says, somebody said that Danielson was having a seizure. The orbital bone was a cover story. If he's going to be out the rest of the year, then yes, it's definitely affecting his time left. We'll have to wait and see what happens until we hear something from Tony Khan or Bryan Danielson. I don't trust reports from internet wrestling journalists or fans on site who don't know anything as what's going on in the background in the office, so to speak. Jeff points out Birdie turned 7 in May. Okay, so I was off on the age there. I said 6, supposed to be 7. Prior to Double or Nothing, Brian returning at that point with this injury is questionable. Exactly. So after that, we got Lexi Nair and Andrade El Idolo. He asks about the CJ Perry comment from last week where she offered him his services. And Andrade basically says it's his business and nobody else's and leaves. Very short promo, very pointless promo, for being honest. We then had yet another Chris Statlander, Sky Blue, and Willow Nightingale promo. Again, all about the Mist thing. It's becoming redundant at this point because all of their promos seem to be exactly the same whenever these three women are involved. And I like Willow. I like Sky. I'm growing to appreciate Stat. I wasn't a huge fan of hers at first, but just seeing the same promo every show is getting old. If we're not going to build to a match between these three, maybe at Full Gear, do a triple threat, then just stop it already. I'm over it. We then had Claudio Castagnoli versus Tracy Williams. Pointless squash match. Claudio's so fired up about what's happened to Bryan Danielson that he just comes out there, destroys Tracy Williams, and we're on to the next segment. Again, I've pointed out a couple times, one of the guys that I used to work with, or excuse me, not work with, but live with, one of the guys I used to live with used to say that he loved AEW because there weren't pointless squash matches. Rampage and Collision this week was cluttered with them. I believe, excuse the pun, but your Punk card has been pulled as far as pointless squash matches. Main event was MJF versus Kenny Omega for the AEW Championship. Omega wanted the opportunity to win the belt back, defend his reign as the longest reigning AEW champion. This was a banger. Now, show of the week definitely went to Halloween Havoc. Match of the week, I definitely think it's between this one and LA Knight versus Jimmy Uso. You know, both these matches were just fire. Omega did Omega things, put on a classic, really helped Max get over as champion, I think. You know, Max has been champion for almost a year, and defeating Kenny Omega in this match, I think, really helped solidify MJF and his run. It was a fantastic match. Of course, MJF won. Great show of sportsmanship and appreciation and class and respect at the end of the match from both men. Really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. What did everybody else think of Rampage, Smackdown, and Collision? Those of you that are still in the room, those of you that may not have gotten your comments in, throw them in. I'm going to run just one more really quick commercial showing you everything that is coming up tomorrow here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, on the Jeff Meacher Network, across the multiverse of media. It is a action-packed day tomorrow of content, beginning technically at midnight Pacific, 3 Eastern, when my members only section gets the drop of me and Noah Foster calling the Halloween Havoc 97 match, title versus mask, Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr. That's not in this trailer. I wanted to make sure I got that in there. We'll be right back in about 30 seconds.
Give me the power, I beg of you!
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Kill her, Mommy! Kill her! Don't let her get away, Mommy! Don't let her live!
Andy, no! Please! We're friends to the end, remember?
This is the end, friend.
As Jeff called it so eloquently, We're gonna die, the Halloween version. Absolutely. So again, midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, we're going to drop me and Noah calling Halloween Havoc 97, Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr., Cruiserweight title versus Mask. 9 a.m. noon Pacific will be me doing For the Love of Wrestling, covering tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw. 11 a.m. 2 Pacific, 2 p.m. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern will be the Dad's Not Always on Wrestling, ranking the Halloween movie franchise. 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Statboy Sports Bar featuring Dory Lou. 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. Coverage begins of NXT Halloween Havoc Night 2. Noah and I on the call once again. And then at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, immediately following all of that, Jeff Meacham will take the airwaves with Talk Wrestling. Whew. So much in store tomorrow. And that doesn't even count today with Jeff having his Meech's Musings, which I believe is 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, just prior to the East Coast feed of Monday Night Raw. So much good stuff in store. I can't wait for tomorrow. It is going to be a ghoulish good time as we celebrate and have a swinging wake across the entirety of the multiverse of media. So, that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, tuning in, having a blast with me for this past hour. And until tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, I am the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Thank you for tuning in and joining me here today. And we will see you guys tomorrow on For the Love of Wrestling.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.